We're getting ready to make this amazing gumbo. We're going to go on a historical journey because this is Black History Month. So, welcome to my channel. Get comfortable and let's go on this journey together. Today, I'm starting while the world is still quiet. This darkness, it belongs to the mothers who rose before the sun, finding their peace in the steam of a pot and making sure we were fed before the day could ever begin. You know, there's a specific kind of magic in a kitchen at 4 a.m. It's a space that has always belonged to us. As I pull ingredients from the fridge, I'm standing on the shoulders of Frederick McKinley Jones. We take it for granted now, opening a cold door, but Frederick was a genius who patented the cooling units for long-haul trucks back in 1940. Before him, if you lived in the North, you didn't eat Southern produce unless it was pickled or dry. He literally mapped out the way the modern world eats, ensuring that our food could travel as far as our people. And while we're talking about the science of the cold, we have to honor Augustus Jackson. Imagine Philadelphia in the 1820s. Jackson was a former White House chef who became the father of ice cream, my favorite dessert to this day. Now, he didn't just make a treat, he mastered the chemistry of it. He figured out that adding salt to ice lowers the freezing point, which allowed him to create that smooth custard-like texture we crave. He was an entrepreneur at a time when the world tried to keep us from owning anything. Yet, he owned the dessert market. It's the little things, too. Look at the ice cream scoop in my drawer. That's Alfred L. Crail, 1897. He was working as a porter in a drugstore, and he noticed servers struggling with 2 spoons to dish out ice cream. He designed the ice cream mold and disher, the one with the clicking trigger we still use today. He saw a problem in the hands of a worker and solved it for everyone. This all flows into why we cooked the way we did. Now, think about the shoebox lunch. In the Jim Crow era, the dining car on a train wasn't for us. So Black women turned the shoebox into a vessel of dignity. Cold fried chicken, a slice of pound cake, maybe a piece of fruit. It was a culinary survival kit. It was a way of saying, you can deny us a seat at the table, but you can't deny us our taste or our nourishment. Now, as I start dicing the Trinity, the onions, peppers, and celery, I'm thinking about the tools that made our kitchen efficient. In 1884, Willis Johnson looked at the way we mixed batter and eggs by hand for hours, and he patented a mechanical beater. It was a complex machine of gears and handles. He understood that our time was valuable. He brought mechanical efficiency to the home, allowing the person at the stove to breathe just a little bit more. And then there was Anna Mangan. In 1892, she gave us the pastry fork. It seems simple, right? But any baker will tell you, if your hands are too warm, you melt the butter in the dough and you lose the flake. Anna's invention kept the heat away from the pastry. Every flaky biscuit or pie crust you've ever loved owes a debt to her design. She was a woman who understood the science of the crumb. We've always been masters of the upcycle. Take Joseph Lee. He was a hoteler who couldn't stand seeing day-old bread go to waste. So, in 1895, he invented a machine that automatically crumbled bread to be used for breading and stuffing. Later, he invented a machine to knead dough. He took the scraps of the kitchen and turned them into a business empire. I'm using peanut oil for this sauté, and that carries its own weight. The Tidewater peanut wasn't a snack back then. It was a memory of home. Enslaved people brought those seeds from Africa, planting them in small provender plots near their cabins. For 100 years, it was considered slave food until George Washington Carver showed the world it was actually a miracle crop. We kept that seed alive in the dark so the world could enjoy it in the light. Now, when you reach the soul of the dish, the roux, it requires patience, just like our history. While you watch me shortly stir the roux, it's going to reflect on what is called ashcake. So let's talk about the ashcake. This was the original bread. Before we had the luxury of cast iron or ovens, we took cornmeal and water, wrapped it in cabbage leaf, and tucked it right into the hot ashes of the fire. There was a grit to it, a smoky mineral taste that became the palate of our ancestors. It was the taste of making something out of literally nothing but dust and heat. This was the beginning of us learning to create something from whatever we may have had, good or bad. That evolved into Kush. If you've ever had dressing, now you know we love our cornbread dressing. Some people call it stuffing, but I'm talking about cornbread dressing. Now, there is a difference between cornbread dressing and stuffing. So now, if you've ever had dressing at a holiday meal, you're eating the descendant of Kush. It was a West African technique of frying crumbled cornbread with onions and fat. It was our couscous. It was a way to make stale bread feel like a feast. And we never ever wasted the liquid, aka Potlikker. You know, it's the liquid that comes off of vegetables, things of that nature. Potlikker is the tea of the South. When the greens were boiled down, the nutrients from the greens moved into the water. The big house got the greens, but we kept the Potlikker. We'd take a piece of cornmeal and we do the dunk. We knew where the life was. We knew to keep that Potlikker. We knew that the liquid gold in the bottom of that pot was the reason our children grew up strong despite the odds. It's the same story with chitlins. Now I know. Chitlins and hog mogs and chitlins. Call it whatever you want. Chitterlings. It's the same story with chitlins. I know people have their opinion on them today, but the art of the cleaning the chitlins, the art of the clean was a ritual. It sometimes took hours, sometimes days of meticulous work. The work that some never wanted to do. But it was an act of extreme sanitation and care. In the 50s and 60s, chitlin struts. Chitlin struts. Who remembers chitlin struts? Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of chitlin struts, or even if you remember chitlin struts. Chitlin struts weren't just dinners. They were actually fundraisers. We sold plates of chitlins to buy buses for the Montgomery boycott. We cooked our way toward justice, one plate at a time. And now I'm making the roux, the famous roux, starting off by melting butter and oil combined. A lot of people want to rush this process, but gumbo can't be rushed. This is where patience comes into play and just a little strategic motion. Now remember, this roux needs to look, not taste, but it needs to look like chocolate. And if you're going to make a good roux, it's going to take some time. After your butter is melted and your oil is well combined with that butter, you add in your flour. And then you stir and you stir and you stir. Now, you cannot walk away from a roux. So before you ever put the butter in the pot, the oil in the pot, you might want to do a few things. Take a trip to the bathroom. Grab you a cup of coffee or a bottle of water. You're only going to really need one hand to stir, so if you need to sip your coffee while you stir, sip your coffee. If you need to take a sip of water, take a sip of water. But you cannot walk away. You cannot let it sit. You need to constantly stir. And as you can see now, we went from a pasty white to almost a mustard color yellow. And when you stir your roux, you have to remember to stir the entire pot. You can't just take your spoon and stir in the middle of the pot, because you see that flour mixture will end up along the sides of the pot if you just stir in the middle. And you have to keep stirring and stirring. And if you don't have the patience that you need, you may say to yourself, I'm just going to let this sit. And then your roux will burn. But as you can see here, the more I stir, the darker it becomes. We're aiming for that rich, kind of chocolatey look. Now you can stir this roux as long as you want, and it will continue to turn a deeper, richer, darker brown. And the longer you stir, the more flavor you will have. So do not walk away from your roux. Shortly, the pot will be simmering, and the kitchen is filling with that scent that feels like a hug. I had a few pieces of garlic that I needed to chop. Forgot about it at the first time when I was chopping the Trinity. So now we'll chop our garlic. And as a reminder, this exact gumbo recipe, it'll be on my website. So you'll have all the ingredients and all the instructions right at the tip of your fingers. That's pamspreps.com. But we have to make sure we mince our garlic. And if you could smell the herbs that I've chopped, mostly from my own garden, because I need to grow my herbs to make sure they're nice and fresh. But now our pot is returning back to the stove after we've let our roux simmer just a little bit. And now that the pot is simmering, that feel of a hug in the kitchen is blooming. And it makes me think of the dishes we've nearly lost to time. Like the terrapin stew. In the 19th century, it was the peak of American fine dining. And it was almost exclusively the domain of Black chefs. We took turtle meat, yes, turtle meat, and sherry and cream, and turned it into something so refined that presidents demanded it at their inaugurations. It's a ghost now, but it's a reminder that we were the architects of high American cuisine. And then there's the food of the woods, swamp cabbage. If you were in Florida or the Low Country, you knew how to harvest the heart of the palmetto. It was dangerous, hard work to get it out of the swamp, but it was a free vegetable that tasted like luxury. Sable is what I'm talking about. It was the land providing for those the system ignored. I'm looking at the beans I prepped recently, and I'm reminded of Hoppin John. Everyone uses black-eyed peas now, but the true, forgotten version used the Sea Island red pea. These peas were brought over from Africa in the hair of our grandmothers. They are tiny, red, and nutty. They almost went extinct, but they are a literal genetic bridge across the Atlantic. Now, when we couldn't get fresh vegetables, we had leather breeches. Yes, you heard me right, leather breeches. We'd string green beans up on the porch with a needle and thread. I've done so myself. And let the sun dry them out until they looked like shriveled leather. When you rehydrate them with a bit of smoked meat, they have a concentrated, earthy flavor that fresh beans can't touch. It was the original slow food. We're coming up on the home stretch of this gumbo, and I'll be adding okra. Delicious. The word is okra. If the roux is the heart of the gumbo, the okra is its soul. It's a natural thickener. It's the plant that survived the Middle Passage to make sure our soups had body. We've always been masters of the mock recipe. When life gave us nothing, we invented the rest. Vinegar pie, for example. If you couldn't afford lemons or live too far from an orchard, you used apple cider vinegar. Yes, you heard me right. Apple cider vinegar. Through the magic of the oven, that vinegar turned into a sweet, tangy custard. It was a triumph of chemistry over poverty. The same goes for the mock apple pie made with crackers and spices. It was a way to have the American dream of a pie on the table when you weren't even allowed to own the land the trees grew on. And then there's persimmon bread, the American persimmons. It's a lesson itself of character. If you eat it too early, it's so bitter, it'll turn your mouth inside out. But if you wait until after the frost, after it's been through the cold, for those gardeners out there, you know what I'm talking about. Those vegetables that need that hint of cold. It becomes the sweetest fruit in the forest. That's our story, isn't it? We've been through the frost. We've been through the cold. And yet, we are here. Still cooking, still seasoning, and still feeding the world. So when you taste this gumbo, you don't just taste soup or chicken or andouille sausage. You don't just taste rice or broth or green peppers or a few onions. When you taste this, you don't just taste the spice. You taste history. Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with me today here in my kitchen. I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. It has been an amazing day. If you are new to the channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Take a second and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you won't miss anything. For my returning subscribers, thank you, and channel members, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Remember, the full recipe, ingredients, instructions, and everything will be on my website, pamspreps.com. All you gotta do is go to the top hit menu and go down to the recipe box, okay? So you'll find it there. And while you are there, grab your free ebook, sign up for my email list. That way, if anything ever happens, I will still be able to provide you all with the recipes, tips, tricks, and hacks that you all are used to, okay? So, without further ado, let's take our taste. Gotta get a little bit of everything on here. This smells absolutely amazing. And don't forget, you can grab your spices while you're there too. This is delicious. Oh my goodness. Don't forget, when you are making that roux, time is your best friend because that is the base, okay? And that's your flavor bomb. You need to take your time, go to the bathroom, grab your water, put your phone on the other counter where you can see it or reach it if you need to because you'll be stirring with one hand. But that will be the best 20 to 30 minutes you spend making a roux. Remember, you need to look like chocolate, okay? So I will see you all next time. The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Bye-bye.